on top of the world. At least we're on the mezzanine level here at Studio F in the heart of Midtown Manhattan, broadcasting live from Fox News World Headquarters.
That's right.
It's the #1 cable morning news show for planet Earth. Thanks
because
to
of
folks
you.
like you. Exactly.
Thank you so much. You filling in for Brian this morning? You had a good weekend. Did you work this weekend?
Did work this weekend. We talked, it was Thanksgiving glow this weekend, but now that it's Monday,
it's
Christmas
Cyber
is in my
Monday. We
sights.
just learned about all these great savings we can have.
I know. It's a wonderfully festive time of year.
Yes,
Family, football. My Vikings won Sunday Night Football last night against the Packers. I'm very excited about
That's why you wanted a helmet.
Yes, that's why I'm a purple helmet. I'm in the market for one.
Well, next stop, Christmas. But our lead story this morning is what went down just south of our border in San Diego yesterday. At 11:20 in the morning, migrants clashed with Mexican police in riot gear. They rushed a concrete canal near the San Ysidro pedestrian bridge, and a group of about 50 people ran past the police, broke through a hole in the border fence, and then some of the group started throwing rocks at our Border Patrol agents on the other side. Migrants threw projectiles at Border Patrol, and multiple agents were hit with rocks. It was at that point, to disperse the crowd, that the authorities deployed pepper balls and tear gas to try to get the people to turn around.
Well, look at that video, and it's working. The tear gas, you can see it there with the smoke, and people are running away from it.
Oh, it works.
Some people were making it up the fence, yelling, "Yes, we can," and then that caused the agents to have to fire off the tear gas. There were images of the migrants on the Mexican side climbing fences and peeling back the concertina wire.
Yeah, the tear gas says in response, no, you can't. President Trump tweeting earlier this morning about this situation, watching these images in real time. He said Mexico should move the flag-waving migrants, many of whom are stone-cold criminals, back to their countries. Do it by plane, do it by bus, do it any way you want. But they're not coming into the USA. We will close the border permanently if need be. Congress fund the wall. The president proving he's serious about this. It's not clear if any, if not only a handful, actually made it across the border to claim asylum, and Mexico is feeling the heat. What he's alluding to there is Mexican officials have said that those who were a part of this bum rush, they're going to try to identify them and immediately deport them for being lawbreakers. So we'll see if they follow through on that. But Steve, that's different. Mexico has not taken this problem seriously in the past. It seems now, because of this pressure, they're forced to.
Well, yeah, exactly. And over the weekend, we heard that it sounded like there was a deal where, with the incoming Mexican president, they were going to, if somebody was going to seek asylum in the United States, they would wait in Mexico. That would be very helpful to the president's plan. But then late yesterday, there was a story out. There is no deal. But nonetheless, it looks as if the Mexicans are talking about deporting up to they're looking at videotape right now to try to figure out who some of those people were who made the
They're furious.
But and I heard you describe the 50 or so that may have made it through the fence.
Got through the hole.
Why is there still a fence? I think that's what people are looking at. If this is the major port of entry at a place where people are trying to pass, that's vulnerable, that's clearly a point of interest. You can add concertina wire, you can do all of that. There's only so much the National Guard and the troops can do to reinforce the border control. If it's a fence that you can cut through, it needs to be the kind of border wall that you cannot penetrate.
Well, DHS says we're not letting you through. We're going to stop traffic, and that's what they did at the biggest port between Tijuana and San Diego, the San Ysidro port of entry. They had to suspend north and southbound crossings for pedestrians and vehicles.
Plus, don't forget the fact that there were a number of migrants who were throwing rocks at the Border Patrol agents. A number of the agents were actually hurt. We don't know the extent of their injuries, but the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen tweeted this out. DHS will not tolerate this type of lawlessness and will not hesitate to shut down ports of entry, they did it yesterday for 5 hours, for security and public safety reasons. We will also seek to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law anyone who destroys federal property, endangers our frontline operators, or violates our nation's sovereignty.
Yeah, so someone's trying to get into your house, and rather than knocking on your door and asking permission, they're throwing rocks at you and demanding that they be let in, and then maybe once they're let in, you don't know what room they're going to be in because you've kind of lost track of them.
Right.
And then they might ask to raid your cupboards and be a part of your welfare state as well. And then maybe they'll show up and become legal in the future. It's an insane process. To draw the line right now is to say that law and order has to matter. And that's why this showdown is so important. I think it sends a message across the caravan and across other groups. And the left doesn't want to take it seriously. They don't take any of this seriously. But the president does. And I think it says to his supporters, he means what he said he was going to do.
Well, Dan Bongino brought up a good point. He said, if you don't want the tear gas in your face, then don't try to storm the border.
Exactly.
And there are so many stories that have been on cable in the last 12, 18 hours about how can't believe they used tear gas and pepper spray on these women and children and the other migrants. Actually, this pretty much exactly the same thing happened back in 2013. According to the San Diego Union Tribune, and this sounds very familiar, back in 2013, a group of 100 people tried to illegally cross the border. They threw rocks and bottles at Border Patrol agents, and the agents responded using pepper spray and other means to force the crowd back into Mexico. So during the Obama administration, they did the same thing.
Well, those images are heartbreaking. I mean, the front cover of New York Post has a mom carrying her girls, and she's wearing a Elsa and Anna t-shirt, the mom is, and the little girls, you know, one of them doesn't have shoes on. That breaks your heart. You know, you want to help.
Yeah, no,
like
listen,
that.
I mean, they're in diapers. But I also question whether or not it's a good idea to drag your kids across that kind of environment.
I know.
I mean, I understand you may feel like you're in a bad situation, but the responsibility is also on the mother and those parents who put those kids in that situation when we made it clear that there's a lawful process to follow. And we know the caravan process is a dangerous one as well.
It doesn't mean we don't have a heart for that family, because of course you do. It's just if you let everybody in, you are letting in. Some are going to be criminals. Some are gonna, you just need to have a check of who's coming through the border so that we can keep our own country safe and our own kids safe.
But things are different this time because in the past, you know, people have come up through Central America and Mexico and just somehow, one way or another, gotten across the border. You know, whether it's in the desert or the Rio Grande or, you know, they'll come through the ports. And in fact, the migrants in San Ysidro, they actually keep their own book to figure out who's next in line.
They do, you're right.
But out in the Tijuana area, because they've got 5,000 people in that stadium, you know, they're sick and tired of it. They don't know how long they're going to wait, and so they told reporters yesterday they were frustrated, and that's why they did it. Unfortunately for some of them, they're going to wind up getting deported back and won't be able to have their asylum.
And you look at these images and say, how do you address this problem? Well, part of addressing a problem is acknowledging you have a problem in the first place. The problem is that Democrats, and we'll play some sound here of the past couple of months, Democrats saying, well, this migrant caravan thing, it's not even really a thing. Listen.
They're telling you the existential threat to America is a bunch of poor refugees 1,000 miles away.
The caravans was being an issue that was inflated for political purposes. To influence the midterm elections.
This president has a tendency to rely on fear, to try and scare people.
We don't have a national security crisis around asylum seekers. They're just flat out lying about the national security threat associated with the caravan.
So, as the president tweeted just a little while ago, we will close the border permanently if need be. Congress fund the wall.
You know, tell that to the people whose communities have been infected by MS-13, by drugs, by opioids, by human trafficking, by sex trafficking, all of those problems that ICE addresses that aren't just border related, that are internally related, all emanating from the fact that the source has never been addressed.
Or talk to the angel moms.
Or talk to the angel moms.
We have a dad coming up who lost his daughter on Thanksgiving Day.
Wow.
What do you think of the response by the Border Patrol agents and what happened in Southern California and Northern Mexico out in that area? Email us, friends@foxnews.com, or we're on Facebook as well.
All right, Jillian has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning. Following a number of stories, including this: an American soldier killed in combat, just identified as Sergeant Leandro Jasso. The Army Ranger lost his life in a shootout with al-Qaeda terrorists in Afghanistan on Saturday. The Washington State native was on his third deployment since enlisting in 2012. Officials describe Jasso as a humble professional who will be deeply missed. He's the second American troop killed in Afghanistan this month. The United States offering $5 million million to find those responsible for the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. Today marks 10 years since gunmen unleashed 4 days of violence across the city, including at the iconic Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. 166 people died, including 6 Americans. Officials in India honored the anniversary by laying wreaths at a memorial site. George Papadopoulos must report to prison today after a judge denies a bid to delay his sentence. The judge ruling the former aide to President Trump forfeited his rights to fight against his conviction. Papadopoulos was the first person to plead guilty in special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe. He will spend 2 weeks behind bars for lying to the FBI. And listen to this. A student shot 7 times at school makes an incredible comeback. 13-year-old Ella Whistler performing at the Colts game in Indianapolis. Well, there she is, Ella, singing the national anthem and dancing with the Colts cheerleaders. Just 6 months ago, she was critically injured when another student opened fire at her Indiana middle school. Isn't that incredible for her to make that recovery and
I know she's doing
perform
so
like
well.
that? Yep, pretty cool.
You watch that video right there, you would have no idea.
No idea. Yep.
All right. Jillian, thank you.
Thanks, Jillian.
Meanwhile, a dramatic crash on the racetrack. Watch this. Whoa! A car flips over and catches on fire. And what happened to the driver? Probably going to surprise you.
Plus, chaos erupting in Paris over President Macron's new gas tax hike in service of climate change. Well, Stuart Varney says it's a sign of things to come if socialism comes to America. He's ready to go. He always is.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, lad.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Thousands of French protesters flooding the streets of Paris, protesting President Macron's controversial gas tax hike.
Right now, gasoline costs the equivalent of over $7 per gallon in Paris, and taxes make up 60% of that cost before the tax increase even goes into effect.
$7 a gallon.
Here to more than weigh in is host of Varney and Company on the Fox Business Network, Stuart Varney.
Where do you want to start?
Wherever
Who
you
can
want.
afford a car?
Right, look, this is a tale of contrast between Bernie-style socialism in Europe and Trump-style capitalism in the United States. In Europe, the state, the government, is everything. That's neo-socialism. In America, private enterprise is everything. And look what we've got. In America, the average price of regular gas right now is $2.55 a gallon. And as you just pointed out, in France, it's $7.06 per gallon. Macron, the president, he wants to raise the gas tax, make the price of gasoline even more expensive, and the people are rioting because it's at $7 already.
Right.
He's doing this for 2 reasons. Number one, the French hate fossil fuels. They want to play their part in combating climate change. And number two, they've got a welfare state which is costing them an arm and a leg, and they need a lot more extra revenue to pay for it, and they can't pay for it.
Well, there were over 100,000 people protesting. I think there were 1,600 different protests across France over this past weekend. It started out as anger at the gas tax hike, but then it spilled over. Now it includes people are angry at the cost of living has risen so high in rural areas, and just Macron in general.
Well, this happens in France on a rather regular basis. Stop laughing.
It does.
But it does. It does. But the underlying problem is the unsustainability of the welfare state, cradle to grave, climate change Europe. It's not sustainable. And there's a warning here. There's a warning here for America. Because I believe the left, the Democrats, they want to take America down the socialist road. That's where they want to take us. Government care, government-run education, climate change, the Paris Accord, that's where they want to go. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't want to go down that road. I'm a missionary for capitalism in America.
And Macron's in office for like 7 years, right? So
Yes.
he's not worried about losing
His
his
approval
position or
rating
being...
is in the 20s.
His approval rating is in the mid-20s. The last time I checked, it was 26%. Meanwhile, President Trump in the United States, under some pressure, 45, 46, 47%. Gas $2.50 here, $7 there.
So if we visit Paris or a place in France,
Or not.
are they going to add this? I know you probably would. I love Paris, but if and many of the women out there, it's a magical city for many reasons. But if we go there, are they going to tack this on to the cost of our trips?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. You want to drive anywhere in France? An arm and a leg, please.
You've described that magical city as a museum. Why?
Because Europe is going nowhere. It's retreating. It's contracting. It doesn't do anything new. It has no response to America's dynamism.
And no armies.
It's just sinking. No, it doesn't have an army either. That's right. But that's true of the whole of Europe. Yeah. America's expanding, what, 3, nearly 4%? Right. Europe is actually contracting. They're in recession. What a difference, huh? And do you want that socialism? Do you really want that?
Bernie does.
No. Come on.
That price per gallon is so high. In Europe, they sell it by the liter. It looks much cheaper.
That's correct. That's right. But they know it's going up.
That's right. All right, Stuart, thank you very much.
Thanks,
We're going to be watching you at 9 o'clock Eastern.
Teacher in a hit-and-run crash on Thanksgiving morning. Witnesses say that he ran a red light and never hit the brakes when he hit Amanda. Amanda Ferguson was on the crosswalk. Her family learned that Joel Vasquez, there's his picture, was out of jail on bond from previous assault charges, and now they're demanding justice. Dan and Cynthia Ferguson join us now, Amanda's parents, who are here with us. Thank you both for being with us. I'm so sorry for your loss. Dan, I'll start with you. Tell us what happened. What happened on Thanksgiving morning?
Thanksgiving morning, my daughter was in a crosswalk crossing the street with several other people when a vehicle ran a red light, hit her, threw her body 50 feet without ever braking. He continued on. He ditched the car. The police found the car with the hood crashed in, the windshield crashed in, and due to witnesses and media pursuit, the man turned himself in 2 days later, of course, and that's when we found out that he was here in El Paso illegally. He was previously arrested for an assault charge. He was taken to jail. He was allowed to bond out, and that's when he, had time, I guess, to regroup and, commit another crime. I know that, the system is broken. It needs to somehow be fixed. If an illegal alien is here in the United States and they're caught on a crime, they need to be held in jail or detained until their trial. At the trial, if they're found innocent, they need to be deported at that time. At the trial, if they're found guilty, they need to serve their time in prison, and then at the end of their sentence, they need to be deported, not allowed to be released back into our society and to kill our children.
Cynthia, tell us about your daughter. What was she like?
She was just an angel. Everyone describes her as like a sunflower, where she stands tall and she shines bright. And, her kids, her students at school were her everything. She was such a bubbly, happy, loving person. And through this, I've just seen how many people just truly loved her and adored her. And for her part, I mean, she really had no clue about the effect she had on people. She lived at the spectrum of everything was, just bubbly and happy. And even though when she was angry, her angry was angry. She lived, there was no doubt about what she was thinking or feeling.
Dan,
and she was my best friend.
Oh, I can't imagine. Dan, your Thanksgiving changed forever, right?
I'm sorry?
Your Thanksgiving will forever be changed.
Oh, yeah, it's a tragedy. I don't even know what to do with the closet full of presents that I got her for Christmas. It was just a shock. Our lives have been destroyed, and I know that, Mr. Trump watches this, and I need to express to him, father to father, that the system is broken. I know that he is vigilantly trying to correct it. I want him to stay focused, and keep pushing for us, the people out here. I'm just a retired teacher in Texas, but when they won't even allow me to see my own daughter because her body is so broken and so destroyed because of this guy who illegally is here and who illegally was arrested and released, something has to change. Mr. Trump, father to father, stay vigilant, and please help correct the loopholes that allow these guys to come back into our society and destroy our families. It's too late for my daughter, but hopefully we can save other people's children if something can be done. It's just a tragic thing.
I know her funeral will be on Wednesday, and they had to send grief counselors into the school. Sixth grade teacher. I'm sure the children are just broken about this, as we all are. God bless you.
Live from New York City, and there you can see Times Square to about a block over. Here we are, 48th and 6th Avenue. Thanks for joining us. Joining us right now, we've got former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and the author of Trump's America, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you. Hey, it sounds as if the Republicans in the House Judiciary Committee have gone ahead and they have subpoenaed James Comey, also former Attorney General Lynch. Mr. Comey says he doesn't want it behind closed doors. He wants it in public so people can hear. Yesterday, Trey Gowdy suggested, you know what, maybe we tape it behind closed doors, and then if there's any secret stuff, we release, take that out and then release the tape. What do you think about all this?
Well, I think the question is what they're going to get into. It doesn't help you much if Comey says, I'd like to appear in public, and then as soon as he's in public, he says, well, I can't discuss this because it's classified. I can't discuss that. So I think it partly is a question of what the topics are going to be. As a general rule, I think it's always better to have the American people involved, and I think the more they can learn, the more capable they are of rendering judgment. So it's a question of what issues are coming up. And again, you always have this question, if they tape it, then release it, unless they release all of it, people are going to start saying, well, did you rig it? Did you slant it? I think that Comey has a point if he's willing to answer all the questions.
What happens next? What do you see going forward?
Well, I don't know what happens next. I think the Senate Republicans continue to approve judges and approve ambassadors and other appointments. I hope that they're going to pass the bill for criminal justice reform, which came out of the House with an overwhelming majority. There's no reason for it to be blocked in the Senate. It has a bipartisan majority. I certainly hope they're going to schedule that in the very near future and make sure it gets through. And then I think there's going to be a big fight over the border and a big fight over what's going on. But the tragic story that you just had is a good example of why people feel we have to be able to control the border and why we have to be able to control who's in the United States. I think the president's right to say he's going to get control of our border. It's part of being a nation, and it's part of our national security.
Mr. Speaker, another aspect of being in the majority, as you know better than any of us here, is you get to set the rules. And a Washington Post headline caught our eye. It said, Democrats' Senate losses jeopardize national spotlight for possible 2020 hopeful. Kamala Harris is on the Judiciary Committee. Currently, it's a 21-member committee. But I didn't even know this. I mean, you can reduce or grow the size of committees. They're talking about shrinking the size of the Judiciary Committee. She would be then, as the junior member, no longer on the committee. Talk to us about why they're doing that and what that might mean.
Well, I don't know why they're doing it. When I became Speaker, we reduced the size of a number of committees. And I think that, it's either side, the majority, the Democrats now in the House, the Republicans in the Senate, they can set the terms of the size of the committees they want. I don't think it relates to her behavior on the committee, although, frankly, I suspect Senator Grassley wouldn't mind her finding a new job. But, again, the Democrats, of course, could always change things. Senator Schumer could convince one of the older, more senior Democrats to give up his slot to keep her on there. But I think what she'll discover is that, well, she's very important to herself and she's very important in California. She may not be that important to the Senate Democrats.
Interesting.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, let's keep it up on Capitol Hill for just a second. You know, as we look at the lead story regarding the clash yesterday on our southern border at the San Ysidro port, you know, so many people are looking in, they're just frustrated. Why can't Congress do something? You know, the laws have been screwed up for so long. Why don't they just do something? Because those images are heartbreaking, but at the same time, you got to stand up for the rule of law.
Well, you have to ask yourself, look, I think they should do something. I voted in 1986 for the Simpson-Mazzoli Act, which included getting control of the border, included creating a green card or a work permit system. And I was with President Reagan in trying to get those things done. The Congress then failed to act. And there's been a very weird coalition of some conservative businesses who want cheap labor and a number of ideological left-wingers who don't believe in borders and who want an open border. But I just want to remind you, Oh, and I'm doing a column today at foxnews.com on this. This war on the border is real. And what people are trying to do is a psychological war, very often guided, by the way, by American leftists who are activists and American left-wing organizations who are helping finance it. And their goal is to find some way to embarrass the U.S. government so we can't even control our own border. And we have to be prepared to stand up to that and to do whatever is necessary. I mean, you're either going to have a country and have a border, or you're not going to have a country. But there are at least 100 million people who would come to the U.S. if they thought they could just, you know, by embarrassing us, they could break the law and come into the U.S. So I think this is a very serious moment. I think President Trump's doing the right thing. And I think it's sad. I'll bet you that the elite media spends a lot more time today on what's happening on the border than they're going to spend on the death of a young American who was killed by an illegal immigrant.
Well, that's a fact. You're spot on there, Mr. Speaker. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning. Let's get you caught up on what's happening out in California. And the nation's deadliest wildfire in a century is now fully contained. Several days of rain helping firefighters knock out the Camp Fire in Northern California after more than 2 weeks of devastation. Crews will continue to dig through the ashes and debris to search for the nearly 250 people still unaccounted for. 85 people now confirmed dead in that wildfire. Al Gore slamming the Trump administration for, quote, burying Friday's climate change report. The former vice president releasing a statement writing in part, quote, the Trump administration chooses the Friday after Thanksgiving to try and bury this critical U.S. assessment of the climate crisis. The president may try to hide the truth, but his own scientists and experts have made it as stark and clear as possible. The report warns of devastating health and economic costs coming to the U.S. A terrifying crash on the opening lap of a Formula One race in Abu Dhabi. Nico Hulkenberg sent flipping through the air before landing upside down on the barrier, his car catching fire.
Are you okay, Nico?
Holy, I'm hanging here like a cow.
Yeah.
Get me out of this fire.
Yeah.
This fire.
While the driver trapped in his burning car for 3 minutes before being rescued, miraculously, he was able to walk away unharmed. And how about this? A nosy bear moseys into a California Highway Patrol office. The bear caught on camera opening the door on all fours and snooping around the vending machines. Moments later, he turns around and heads out, followed by 2 officers.
Okay.
Just looking for a snack.
That is a cute video, but then if you were face to face with a bear, what do? We were in the mountains this weekend, and my dad was out on a walk, and one of the neighbors, he started talking to him. Y'all know how nice my dad is, talks to everyone. And the lady said a woman was mauled here in Asheville recently on a walk with her dog, and the mama bear was trying to protect her baby cubs. So we were like, what do you do if you see a bear? Dad says you stare him down and they'll run away. I don't know if that's true.
He's totally right.
Really?
Absolutely.
Is that right?
You try not to get in between, obviously. You stare them down, quiet, you stand, let them go the other way. But if they come at you, your only chance is to run at them and scream at them.
So,
but I heard that
I'm going to have to look this up because I was in Yosemite back in October, and we were told otherwise. We were told, like, make loud noises, that they don't like that.
Yeah,
so,
bang on in Boy Scout camp, you would bang on a pot and it would scare them away.
Yeah. That was like from the movie with the 2 twins, remember when they went camping with the stepmom?
Absolutely true.
What was the name of that movie when she was banging pots and pans to scare off the... Anyway, let's ask an expert. Janice, do you know the answer? Is there a bear expert?